Hey, Decide Your Destiny crew, Kyle Spyrides here for another Decide Your Destiny conversation. And today we've got Claire Markwick in the hot seat. Hey, Claire, how you going?
Good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Claire is a performance coach and she does a great job helping business owners and people get the best out of themselves so that they can make sure that they're delivering the best goods, I guess, in their own business. But Claire, I'll let
Totally.
you do a better intro than me, and I'll throw it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. So,
Awesome.
yes, I am a performance coach. My business is called Reignite Performance Coaching, and my focus is really on building businesses by building up the people within them.
Beautiful.
I'm always saying, you can have the best strategy in the world, you can have the best business plan in the world, you can have paid these strategic consultants thousands of dollars, but it's the people that work in the business that make those strategies happen. So if people aren't working well together, then all of that is kind of a waste of time. So my focus is really on the people and helping people do better business
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. Well, I
in a
think,
nutshell.
in a nutshell, I mean, I can already see that that I'd be an ideal candidate, and I know many people when you're managing multiple things, like yourself, kids and family, and personal growth and different sort of things in your life, you really need support and you need coaches, in that setting. Do you coach all around the world?
I do. Yeah. Look, at the moment, I think my client base is pretty much all in Australia, but I have done like people in the UK, people in Europe, people in America, and that's the beauty of platforms like this, isn't it?
Yeah.
We can be sat in our spare bedrooms
Yes.
anywhere in the world, and as long as time zones work out, then yeah, then we can talk to anyone. The world has gotten much smaller, but yeah,
Yes.
absolutely right. In as much as sometimes it just really helps having someone in your corner.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that I've been working one-on-one with lately know exactly what they've got to do and they know exactly what they want to do, but life gets in the way. and
Yeah.
and so just having someone that you have like a monthly check-in with, it's like, oh shit, like I said to Claire I was going to get that done. I better get that done. And it's just that little push that people need often. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can see it. I mean, I can tell it, your energy straight away, which is awesome.
Thanks.
Do you find that, I guess, as time is going on, is distraction a bigger, um, I guess, issue with people? Like, are you finding like probably the main thing that you're doing is grounding your clients and getting them into that sort of, that sort of commitment and accountability that's very important as life becomes more and more busy, more and more distracting? Is that becoming a big issue that you're seeing with your clients?
Yeah, look, I think the talking very general, big picture for the
Yeah,
minute, I think the world that we're living in is getting busier.
yeah,
Like we have got the ability to talk to people all over the world. We've got the ability to do things instantly.
yes,
We've got the ability to do multiple things all at the same time.
yep.
With all these technological advances, there's so much we can do.
Mm,
The question is, should we do them? Because like really silly things like I've taken social media off my phone because it's a distraction. Like
mm.
it's great having all this stuff at our fingertips, but do we actually need it? So
Yeah,
I
yep.
guess
That's a
what
big commitment. Yeah, I mean,
I know. Like I haven't come off social media altogether.
yeah, but off your
I'm not
phone's a
ready.
big deal.
I'm not ready for that step, but it's not on here. And I
Yeah,
tell you what, the amount of times that I've gone just to check something quickly before a meeting or something, and I'm like, oh, damn it, it's not there anymore.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like
But
auto. Yeah,
it just helps us like tap into what we've naturally got. Yeah, my husband always says to me, he goes, the reason you probably forget so much is because you rely so much on your phone and having things backed up on your phone. So it's like we can like retrain ourselves to remember stuff and to be efficient about stuff and prioritize stuff without having to rely on devices
yes,
to some extent. So I guess getting back to your original question, a lot of what I do is helping people focus in on what is really important, because the world around us will fill in the gaps like
yeah,
automatically. Like we will always be busy if we choose to be busy. There will always be stress on us, there will always be pressure on us. So the first step is always, let's just let's just come back to core.
Yes.
What is core? What is really, truly important? What are we trying to achieve here? And what does success at that look like? Once we've got that defined, then we can sort of say, okay, where are we now? And reverse engineer to fill in the gaps.
Yeah. Yeah. Join the dots looking back. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my younger brother actually told me that, funnily enough, he said the same thing about calendar, because when he found out that I was using, like, and I think he's 8 years younger than me, but he said, like, be careful, like, using things like, calendar, like Google Calendar, different sort of things, because you become reliant on these. And
yeah,
only when you do go out to the bush and you're like, what way is south? What way is east? And you're like, I've got no clue. And you realize how.
Oh, my compass app doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. My app doesn't work. My phone's not working. You realize how far we have. Look, we've evolved a lot, but we've also de-evolved a lot in terms of our natural instincts. And I always believe in a lot. I mean, for me personally, it's been like a health journey, but going back to natural, or the natural way, is so important. And we can overcomplicate. And my grandfather, who's in that picture over there, he like he had the great saying, which you've probably heard before, but KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Trying to keep it simple, because it's so, like you said, we've got so many things and we've got so much access that it's so easy to overcomplicate our lives, and people can live really complex lives in today, when really, what are the main essential things you need, and also on an emotional scale, you need a sense of belonging. You need, you want to make some sort of social impact. You want to help people. You want to offer some sort of value. You come back to those natural core elements. Do you think living in the, I mean, I won't reveal everything, but living in the sort of environment that you live in, do you think that pays a lot of, like, I guess, dividends, or pays a lot of, allows you to relax a lot more and get into your core zone?
Yeah, definitely. I think living in rural Australia is definitely helps me. So I'm a person, I know that I'm a person that likes to do stuff. And even in, like, my self-care and downtime to me looks very different to what it would look like to somebody else, because I have to be doing things. And I think when, I know when I'm in the city, or when I'm in a more built up place with more going on around me, I find it even harder to switch off and calm down and slow down. So I think having nature right there on my doorstep, and having been able to watch the river, like, we've had tremendous rain over the last few days. And we've got a river in the valley that we can see from our veranda, and just watching that rise and fall 2 meters within 24 hours, like, nature is amazing. And I don't think enough of us stop and take notice of what's around us. And when we're in busy, bustling cities and suburban areas, we just get sucked up into that. So definitely for me, as a very fast-paced, action-oriented person, to be able to go outside and, take a breath of fresh mountain air first thing in the morning and hear the river roaring or hear the birds singing, it definitely helps me. But even then, we still, as a person, we still have to remember to go outside and do that. I've still got emails popping through. I've still got things buzzing in my calendar. I've still got stuff going around in my head. So even living where I do, I can choose to not look out the window and just look at my computer screen and be sucked up in my little digital world. So whether we're in the country or whether we're in the city, we still have to make the conscious decision to get outside and stop and unwind. I think that's a really important distinction.
Yeah, you still have to create the space and
Totally.
and the time, and actually be attentive when you're there. Yeah, I definitely know that. Wow. And so, do you find that you're still able to engage in a lot of, like, the country town, like, projects, and, like, I guess, like, businesses and schools, and different sort of organizations that you help with your coaching? Are you able to get out into the community? Is it still quite easy for you to connect with those sorts of people?
Yeah. I think, purely logistically, yes, we're remote, but we're not we're not that far away from things to still be a part of things and still be connected. I'm a member of the local Chamber of Commerce. I'm actively linked with people in council. I've got my own networking group that I run with a couple of other lovely ladies. And so, purely logistically, there's lots of things that I can get involved in, despite living rural. In terms of,
I mean, that's what a lot of people would probably think is like because you're selling the dream to me very easily, but it's like, how do you kind of like, your network or your kind of community is smaller, but I mean, I know my grandmother grew up in the country, and I lived in I did some studying in Albury-Wodonga when I was younger, and I know that sort of environment where if you're in a country town, it's like, you don't have to, I guess, try and grab attention of 100 people only to grab one person's attention. You can kind of build deeper, stronger relationships. People are a little bit more, how do I say, in general, very, very general speaking, but people are a bit more present, a bit more engaged with you. That's what I found, I guess, in Albury. I don't know about the Wodonga side, but yeah, I know the Albury side. But yeah, I mean, you can still find great relationships, I guess that's what I'm saying.
You can. And I think one of my key values personally and in my business is responsibility. And I could sit back and say, I live in a town of 6,500 people, or actually I live 25 kilometers out of a town of 6,500 people. I'm in a valley with very, very few people around me. So, how on earth can I possibly have a business that's successful? So I could sit in that victimhood if I chose to, or I take responsibility and say, this is where I want to live. This is part of what success looks like for me. And this is kind of what I was talking about before in terms of reverse engineering what success looks like.
Yep.
To me, success is having my own property in regional Australia. We've got a bit of a hobby farm, there's other things going on. So I need to design a business that fits that lifestyle, that services that lifestyle. So I need to step up and take responsibility and set things up to enable that end game to happen.
Yeah. Do you find that's beautiful? I mean, like, like that's success, and that's such a huge achievement in its own right, to make that work and go, this is where I'm going to live, and I'm going to reverse engineer my life around it. And like you said, the logistics.
And it's something that has only been probably in the last 5 years that I've had awareness of. Prior to that, I'm an accountant by profession. So prior to that, I was in the corporate space. I've lived in much bigger areas, still not, well, I have lived in Perth, but still not big cities, but much bigger areas than this. And I've been caught in that corporate bubble, that go to work, that hustle, that 9-to-5 hustle. And always striving for that next thing. It's like, that next promotion or that next opportunity or that, that next thing, that's what's going to make me happy. That's what's going to make me happy. That's what's going to make me happy. And then you work your butt off, you get there and it's like, I still don't feel where I want to be. And the problem, I mean, I'm talking generally, I'm talking from personal experience, but it does expand out, is we don't stop and take the time to define what success looks like. We just keep going. It's like getting in our car and just driving and then getting frustrated that, we don't know when we're there. Like we don't know when we've got to our destination because we don't have that destination defined.
Yeah.
So, I consider myself quite a free spirit who will flit from this to that. I don't like a structured plan. I'm not saying that we have to create a 10-year plan for our life and take all the fun and variety out of it. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying that in order for us to feel satisfied and feel fulfilled and feel successful, we've got to define what success looks like for us personally. And it's going to be totally different to that person over there and that person over there. And that's perfectly okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge thing that you just said. I think, especially in society and those pressures that are, is like, what is success and what have we thought success is? I mean, I know as I've grown up, the success that I saw was very material and it was generally material objects. And rather than, and what I've learned, I guess over time, what I've really enjoyed is is kind of the understanding that success is also what you become as you are achieving those things. And I look at that as more successful, is that, wow, if, you know, if everything's going bottoms up, or if things are chaotic and everything, and I can be the calm person who is looking for the solutions and the strategies, and I'm looking to solve the problems in that situation, that's success. You know, there's many different things that are success, you know, and I think it's so important what you said there, is that it's going to be different for every person, and you don't have to have it carbon copy, you know, PDF, this is what success is across the board. Success can be many different things, you know, and I think it does come back to those sorts of things. I mean, I talk about the heart and soul, and kind of, you know, like that's the core for me, like, you know, coming from the heart and soul and speaking from the heart and soul. And I know whenever I'm, you know, when I might be doing a video, like, so I do a daily Decide Your Destiny video, and I'll talk, and I know the best videos are when I'm talking from the heart and soul, and I'm not worried about, oh, did I mention that, you know, that politically incorrect, or society not like that, you know. I'm kind of just speaking from the heart and soul and going, this is, you know, what I came across today, and this is how I decided to decide my destiny today. And when you do that, it's just like you're living in like a natural flow state of, I think, how you should exist, or how you're supposed to exist. You know, you're not putting up all these blockades, like you said, that kind of can, you know, deter you from living true to what you want to achieve. I mean, that would be my probably next question, is, you know, what signifies heart and soul to you? Is it that, like, working out really what success means to you, and going for, I'm going to live in the country, and then I'm going to work everything else around that?
Yeah, I think it's like you said, it's coming out of head and going into heart. And I think, again, sweeping generalization, but I think we've become not only a nation, but a population. The human race has become very, how do I say it? We're protecting ourselves by following a set path. You know, we graduate school, we go to uni, we get a job, we work up the career ladder, and anyone who strays off that, it's a bit like, you know. When I ask clients, you know, what is your end game? You know, what does success look like? I use an exercise where I say, just describe to me what your average day looks like. So, you know, I don't want the holidays and the fancy stuff. What does your average day look like? And the amount of times that you can just tell that people are limiting themselves based on stuff that's going around in their head. And so, you know, I'll stop people. I'm like, no, stop. Stop. Like, where are you living? And so, oh, well, I'd love to be living on the coast, but, you know, that's just not going to happen because houses on the coast are so expensive. It's like, no, stop. Come from here. Like, so, you know, heart and soul for me, it's what I've had to learn to do, and I'm still learning to do, is really trust my gut. You know, my business is called Reignite Performance Coaching. And the reason it's called Reignite is because when I decided to make the jump from my accounting and finance job into my own business, like it was a scary decision. But I remember my husband saying to me, he's like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Because he said, it's like you've just reignited. He's like, it's like the kind of, have you seen the movie Trolls, where when they get sad, they're all gray, and then they start to hug and sing, and all the color comes back up through them? It's like that. It's, you know, it's like, come out of your head, come out of being gray, and just have faith in yourself and do that thing you want to do. And it's about trusting your gut. So for me, long-winded answer to your question, heart and soul is when I've got that like butterfly feeling in my stomach. It's like, I know I'm onto something. It's scary as hell, but I've got that feeling there, and that's the path I need to pursue.
It's inspirational. I love it. I've heard of the Trolls, but I haven't actually seen the movie. So now I'm going to go and watch that with, you know, that intention.
There are so many life lessons you can take out of kids' movies. I swear to God, I should do a whole, that could be a whole little side hustle.
Yeah, exactly.
Side hustle podcast or something. Life lessons from kids' movies.
What to look at next time you watch it. Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. So, and I guess probably that's a great segue, is you have your own kids, and you're involved with, training, like you've got school projects and different sort of clients. So obviously, future generation are looking, you're not just looking at businesses, you're also looking at, developing great, I guess, leaders in the future. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. Well, as I say, like my focus is on people. Like we cannot grow businesses without growing the people that operate those businesses.
Yeah.
So whether that's inspiring the next school leaver to open their own business, or whether that's inspiring the next school leaver to look at a leadership career or look at a career in a different light, it's focusing on people. So yes, I'm with two young sons myself. I'm already starting to see how the pressure of the modern world affects them. And it affects them very differently. They're very, very different. They've come out of the same mold, but they are both incredibly different. And they cope with things in different ways, and they deal with things in different ways, and they move forward in different ways, as you would expect.
Yes.
But there's, like, I'm noticing particularly in my eldest son, who's approaching 11, he is very conscious when he thinks or does something different to someone else. And he's very self-deprecating. He'll talk himself down. He must be thinking something wrong, or he must be doing something wrong, or he must be feeling something wrong because he thinks differently to this person. And so I think
I had that as a kid. Yeah.
We all have it, still have it. I just really fear, as our world continues to expand and shrink at the same time, and it gets more and more complex, what it's doing to their little minds and what they're exposed to, both positive and negative. It's overload. So I've got a real vested personal interest in helping young kids, or teenagers predominantly. I mean, he's still quite young, but I'm working with groups of like year 12 age students to really help them before they step into the world of work, or before they step into going to uni, or before they step into looking at starting their own business, to help them realize that just because they think differently, or they behave differently, or they communicate differently, or they're motivated by different things, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. Helping them identify their own strengths and how to tap into some of those other things when they need them, or dial some of the other things back when it's potentially limiting their progress forward. But to sort of celebrate the naturalness that is each individual.
Yes.
I think it's something that schools try and do, but from what I'm hearing, it's not coming through quite right. So I'm running some pilots, hopefully in term 2 this year with a few high schools. So
that's awesome.
Watch this space.
Yes, definitely watch this space, folks. I love that. I mean, I definitely know at school that there was a huge thing about groupthink. I mean, groupthink was so big, and was so, you kind of, once you came out of school, it was like, wait a minute, what's my identity? And a few years later you work out, wait a minute, why do I see this friend? Is it just because we go and drink together? Are we just drinking friends? Is there more to this? Do we do other activities? Do we do other positive activities? Are there anything else? And you realize you become this groupthink in the school, like in this. I mean, I went to an all boys school, and kind of that sort of environment. You wanted to be the cool kids, or you wanted to, and the cool kids sat in that area, and it's amazing how you can see what happens at school reflected in like what kind of tends to happen in society, and I think diversification, and that sort of thing, I think really helps out, because you look at podcasts. I think in 2019 there were 800,000 podcasts, and I think in 2020 there were 1.6 million. So that diversification of media, of listening to different people, and actually getting different perspectives in your life, I think is so important. Because you can say, hey, I listened to this podcaster and they were talking about this interesting thing, and then someone else can bring another difference, and you can get critical thinking going, and you can get debate in a healthy way, and that's where people, I think, start to understand life more and understand importance, rather than just kind of regurgitate different bits of information. You're kind of like, and that's what I love about long form conversation. I think it's so important. Have you have you found any, I guess, challenges as you're trying to get into the schools, or you're trying to get into these projects? Like, what's the sort of biggest challenge? Like, is it the window for kids is too short, or is it, trying to? I mean, you can tell me a little bit more about that.
Oh, the challenges of physically sort of launching programs like this, you mean?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest challenge is what do you condense it down to? Because
yes,
if I had the capacity to, I'd love to be this sort of open book. It's like
yep,
let's talk about this, and let's talk about this, and let's talk about this. Is squeezing something into a 6-week program to make it
yes,
fit the curriculum. Like it doesn't feel right to me, but to be able for schools to be able to facilitate it and fit it in, then that's what it has to be. But I think what I work really hard to get across to the kids, because I've done it with a pilot group,
yep,
is that this is, I describe it, because even when I do this work with adults as well, I describe it like, it's like a gym induction. It's like that when you've made the decision to go and join a gym, you go and you have that first session, and you have your fat pinched, and you have your weight and your height, and you're shown all how all the
BMI,
equipment works and everything. But just doing that session alone, nothing's going to change. It's like, yep, cool, I'm set now. I'm going to lose my 10 kilos that I want to lose, and I'm going to get super strong and fit and healthy. Like, that's not going to happen.
no,
So the frame is this 6-week program, or whatever it works out to be, that will fit into the school. It's like, this is your introduction to
yep,
what should become a framework of life. And it's kind of like, this is the theory, this is the model, but these are the questions that you should be asking yourself every single day. These are the things you should be reflecting on. Like, this isn't just something that starts and stops. Like, this is lifelong education. And so whilst it seems a bit superficial to kind of squeeze it into something that fits in within the school day, within the terms, within the curriculum, it has to be that to
yep,
get it out there to people. But as I say, my focus is, this is teaching a framework of how to be an effective human being, and that doesn't start and stop.
yeah,
So I'm hoping that these are sort of skills that then these kids can just take through into their own business, or take through into their careers, and we'll get this next generation of more empathetic leaders who are willing
yes,
to be vulnerable, and know their strengths, and know what their weaknesses, and know how to tap into the people around them to be the most effective team, and therefore have the most effective business.
yeah. Well, no wonder you love what you do, because you being able to do that framework. I know I took things away from school, and years later, 10 years later, some of those things still added value, or like you said, were frameworks for me to then go and, or even just stepping stones for me to kind of go and leverage off and go down a different direction. And
Yeah.
it's funny because, you come out of school, and, a lot of the time it's like, oh, what a waste of time, or, like, oh, I mean, look, that's pretty intense to say, but I mean, like,
No.
what did I get from it? Those sorts of things, and you try to work out. And I think what I got most was when I had those relationships with those certain teachers, and they kind of opened up and shed a little bit of light on what the world's going to be like when I get out there, because you really aren't really in the world when you're at school. You're really in this kind of the
Bubble.
school world, yeah, this bubble. So I think it's, if you can help people set up that framework, I mean, I know the value that's already given my life. So that's awesome. You can do that. I mean, you touched on leadership there, and obviously, leadership has become such a big focus point. In 2021, continuing on, different decisions being made. What signifies, I guess, good leadership to you, and what's kind of the good leaders that you're wanting to get out of these school environments, or even business owners?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and as I say, when I do this sort of self-awareness, self-development piece with adults that are already in the workforce, in teams, the biggest lesson that I like people to come away with is awareness and empathy of those around us. That awareness that just because we see things like this, and that person sees things like this, there's no right or wrong there. It's just different. And I think the real leadership skills, it's it's the soft skills,
Yeah.
you can teach, unless you're going to be like a heart surgeon or something like that. You want someone to be well studied
Definitely.
technically to do that role.
Yes.
But if,
Yes.
if we're talking people leadership within an organization, the technical skills of that organization, or technical experience or knowledge of that industry, that can all be taught. What will stand one leader aside from another is the ability to have empathy for those around, their ability to listen, their ability to stop and actually reflect like a human being, and appreciate that they've got a team of human beings around them that have other lives and outside of this work bubble. Because let's face it, school's a bubble, but work is a bubble as well.
Yeah.
And I think I really hope that if 2020 has taught us anything, it's taught us that we need to be more compassionate, and we need to be more considerate, and we need to remember that we're all blooming humans.
Yeah.
All of us, like, none of us are perfect. None of us are superheroes. None of
Yeah.
us are ever going to have our shit completely together. We've all got family members who are sick, or we've all got kids who have got some kind of problem, behavioral problem or health problem or something. We've got partners that we that we argue and that we bicker with. Like, we've got life going on. And I think the really successful leaders are the ones that have empathy to that and can show vulnerability to that. Say, hey, I've got shit going on too. And it's not about being best buddies with everybody, because let's face it, you don't go to work to necessarily to create best buddies, but you can still be human. And you can still relate to people on a human level. And that all starts with awareness of how we all operate, and how, awareness that those around us are different.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, I think it's so important to see that in some leaders. And I think, the more that we can see that in leaders that we kind of look out at, and maybe that's the thing, maybe we're not going to be looking at these leaders and paying attention to those leaders anymore. We're going to be looking at different leaders, because they do show empathy, and they do show emotion, and they do show those sort of factors. And I remember when I was younger, going through school, and there were quite a few tough times. And my grandmother, who was a counsellor for 60 years, took me to a counsellor that she knew. And I remember just chatting to her, and eventually after a few sessions, we were talking about crying, and she kind of mentioned that her husband, he's Hungarian, and she says sometimes, he'll be doing the dishes and he'll just, start crying. And she said, her Australian sort of background was very different, and she had to kind of understand that and realize that in that culture they share their emotions. So he might be crying, thinking of his mother, or his past, or whatever's going on. And like, that's such a lovely and powerful aspect, to actually show vulnerability. I mean, it shows that you're human, and that's powerful in an essence of itself.
It absolutely is. And it's not, there might be some people like that hear this, that think, oh, well, if you expect me to be a blubber and wreck and just cry at work, then you think again. It's not
place.
It's not necessarily about bursting into tears in the middle of a meeting and, there you go, tick, showed my vulnerability. That's missing the whole point. It's just about having those human to human connections, because I keep saying and sounding like a broken record, it is people, it is human beings that make or break businesses. It's human beings that make or break relationships, that make or break these big organizations. So just being able to relate to people as a human, rather than just a resource or a tool that's got a job to do, I think is so powerful. And I really hope that more people have learnt that through the last 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, the importance of what you said is just amazing. And the importance of life and existence and longevity has become on the forefront. And you're right. I mean, me too. I would hope that some of those emotional aspects of life accompany the importance of longevity. The importance of maybe getting along, or the importance of maybe, like we were talking before we got started, being inquisitive, being curious, asking questions, being interested in someone or something that someone said. And that's the thing. I always grew up like that. So, and I'm not trying to say that I'm, like you said, we're all humans. We're all working on many things. I'm working on many things. Trust me. Um, but I guess one of the things that I had as a kid was this curiosity, and growing up around having the right. I had wrong people in my life as a young kid, and then I had right people in my life, and those right people really ignited that curiosity and told me to keep being curious, keep being interested, keep being involved, keep being engaged with life. And for me, that's where I go out and I want to kind of ask those questions and connect with those sorts of people and see what we can build together. And it's kind of comes back to that sort of child trying to build toys and play with other kids and work out what we can create. And I think that's when I see things that aren't that, or are shutting down, or are not conducive to creation. I can't compute with it, and I think that's more living within your heart and soul center. You can't compute with things that are not conducive to life.
Yeah. I think curiosity and, adventure and that sort of free spirit, they're things we're born with, like how any parent out there get frustrated as hell with toddlers going, why? It's this natural curiosity. They're little sponges. Their brains just want to suck in everything because the world is wonderful and the world is amazing. And somewhere along the line, we lose that. It's like, but it shouldn't be that way. Like, we don't have to put this skin on, this facade, and like, I know everything now, I'm going to stop asking questions about the world. Like, we can still have, like, imagine how different our life would be if we still looked through a child's eyes and we still had that childlike wonder. When we look outside or we experience something new, it doesn't have to be something that we're afraid of. That feeling in our stomach, that butterfly feeling, that could just as easily be excitement and curiosity and wonder as it is fear and anxiety. And I'm not saying that that's just a fix to anxiety and mental health problems. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying, imagine how different our experience of life can be if we chose to look through the eyes of opportunity and wonder and excitement, as opposed to anxiety and fear and, this sort of closing ourselves in. It could be a very different experience.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I spent a day doing that the other week, and I don't know why, but the word interested was on my mind. And I was like, I'm just going to be interested with everything I'm doing. And I went like, wow, everything's not as tiring as it was the day before. Work is not as tiring. Listening to this person or working this thing out or trying to solve this problem is not as tiring because I'm actually interested. And I think that's where you see kids have like this abundant energy. And I think that's a big part of it, is they're actually interested in what they're doing. If you're not interested in what you're doing, then obviously that kind of attitude just kind of deflates your energy levels.
Well, I had an experience just this morning. So yesterday, my kids were in the swimming pool here, and it's not super warm at the moment. It's like 25 degrees or something. The water was like 23 degrees. And my limit of my, sensible adult self is I don't go in the pool if it's under 24 degrees because it's too cold. Yes. And I was like, oh, nah, too cold. I'm not going in. They dragged me, like they made me, I was like, okay, sod it, I'll go in. But still, like, this is me reflecting this morning. I'm like, still, they were just having fun. And I ended up getting shitty because they were spraying me with water pistols, and I'm like, it's cold. And I realized I was in the pool with them in my head. I'd already decided it's cold. I don't really want to be here, but I've got to be the good parent and be in the pool with the kids and have fun. But I was totally there in my head. And that's what we were talking about before, that difference between being in our adult head and our child heart. And I think if I was reflecting on it this morning, I'm like, if I'd have just let go and just gone, to hell with it, I'm in the water, it's cold, but I'm having fun, isn't this wonderful? I'd have probably felt a lot warmer and had much more fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So even when you know all the theory, this is like, we're still human. But at least we then have the opportunity to reflect on it and go, right, okay, that was what happened then. This is what I'll do differently next time.
I love that. And I love that you said the adult head and child heart. I mean, my grandfather used to say, keep that inner child alive, keep that inner kid alive. And he, like, successfully, to see someone, who I guess wasn't on medications, didn't have many surgeries, didn't have many interventions in terms of his health, live like for 92 years, and keep that inner child alive. Like that was something that, like, I saw that, like I lived with him and my grandmother for 10 years and just saw that kind of, he had that inner child. And when the kids were around, he was playful. He would observe things, as an architect, but he just had that essence. And it's just like, it's such an amazing thing to see that you can do it, and we think, oh, how can I keep that? I've got to be an adult in this world. I've got to be, I can't, but I've seen it firsthand. You actually can keep that inner child alive.
That's right. And we again, people could be taking this very, very literally. We have got to adult, we have got to do adult things. We have got to make adult decisions. We've got to pay bills. We've got to earn money. We do have to adult, but we can do it from a different space. Like we can, with a different attitude. That's exactly right. Yeah,
exactly. Well, one of the final questions I wanted to ask you is, a lot of people kind of talk about what was that moment that changed you, I guess, from accountant to what you're doing now, or what was that moment? I mean, I guess maybe a twofold question is maybe what was that moment, but what keeps like that kind of that burning desire alive with you each day? I guess that would be the two questions. When did you kind of decide you want to change, and what keeps it going?
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive question and a big long story. I'll try and keep it as concise as possible.
That's so good. That's so good.
But essentially, I was always a career-driven person. Like I said before, I consider myself a go-getter. Like I have to be doing stuff. I was always very career-focused, very job-focused. As friends around me were starting to get cliquey and broody and talk about kids, and like, but, this is where I was. But that a cliche is true. Kids do change you, and my perspective on things started to change. Probably not so much after our eldest was born, more once our second son was born. And it's like, okay, my life is different now. Like I could pretty much still keep control with just one. But with two, I'm like, okay, life's a bit different here. And so there were a heap of little triggers through when our youngest was growing up and I was going back to work. But the thing I say was the final straw for me was both our boys like motorbikes, and my eldest, I was having a conversation with him one time, and he was probably about 7 or 8 at the time. And he was like, I'm going to be a pro motocross rider when I'm older, Mum. And, like as a mum, I was dying inside going, oh my God, no, you're not. But, outwardly, I was like, that is awesome. I'm like, you can do whatever you want. You can, if that is what you set your mind to, that is what all the decisions in your life lead to. I'm like, you can create that. You can make that happen. If that's what you want to happen, you can do whatever you want. And while I was saying those words, I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not showing them that. I'm going to work every day in a job that I've lost my passion for. I don't really want to be there. I don't have the energy for it. I'm flat. I come home tired. I come home grumpy. I come home snappy. There's arguments. I can't be bothered to do stuff. I'm like, I'm not being the example. Like I'm telling them all these words, yet they're watching me just settle in this safe little bubble. And so that was kind of like the final straw. I'm like, right, I need to be that example for them. So that kind of answers both questions, because then you said, what keeps me going is that reflection, that constant reflection. Am I being that example? Is where I'm at right now being the example that I want my boys to see? And sometimes it's not, like we do get sucked in. Do we get sucked down a path? And, this personal development journey is not about being perfect all the time. Like our end goal can't be perfection, because we'll never reach that and we'll never therefore feel satisfied. It's a constant journey. And so to have something that we can check in against, for me, it is where I'm at right now. If one of my boys were doing this, would I be proud? Am I the example of what I want their lives to be? And so that's what kind of keeps me going and keeps me constantly reevaluating where I'm at and what I'm putting priority to.
That's amazing. Well, it's that word I mean, it's very popular nowadays, but it's that accountability. I think, it's so true. If you're being accountable, and like you said, if you're trying to inspire, the next generation, you're trying to inspire, your own children that you created, but then you're not living that out. It puts a big, I guess, microscope on, well, come on, Claire, what am I being? And I know for myself,
Exactly.
same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's the same, it's the same, whether you're leading your family or leading a team. You as a leader, we can't just say, you need to do this, you need to communicate better, you need to be more compassionate, you need to be more empathetic, and then go and sit in your office and not be that yourself. We have to be, and this is another one of my little hashtags I use is be the change. Like, we have to be an example of the change that we want to see. Like, we can't just bark an order and expect everyone around us to change if we're not prepared to make that change first.
Yes.
That kind of comes full circle to your question previously about great leadership. It's about being the example, being that change, showing people what it looks like, to do what you're striving to do.
Yeah. And I think, an important point to touch on is, like you said, with your youngest, and I think probably a lot of young people, and it affects adults, I guess I'm an adult. I've never really thought of it in that way. But yeah.
At what point am I an adult?
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I just crossed a threshold. I just turned 28, so I guess I'm an adult. But it affects kids, and it affects everyone. But I think, like you said, because kids' minds are sponges, it can affect them, for a longer time, and they might not have defenses and different sort of things there that they can tap into. I guess what I'm discussing is that kind of that societal pressure. Like, I know, when you're talking about accountability, same thing with me. I created these Decide Your Destiny Daily Dose videos to kind of help people, ignite, like you said, engage that sort of, let me decide, how I'm going to react. Things are changing around me, but let me decide how I'm going to react. Or, like the one that I did yesterday, let me decide to show up. And in that, I touched on, I guess, a few topics that are, how do I say, are very contentious in the online sphere or in a debating world. So, and my mind was going into that retreat or into that kind of, oh, do I mention these things? Oh, I'm kind of worried. What if someone sees it and they don't like it and they don't appreciate it? And but when I just went, no, let me go with it, and it came from a good place. So it didn't come off as off-putting. It just came from me sharing information and sharing experiences. And I think that's a big thing that, you're going forward and being accountable. I went, okay, I'm doing these videos and I'm saying decide your destiny. But if I'm going to be halted by, oh, society might not like me mentioning this, or a group might not like me kind of saying that, and it's something as simple as, my specialist told me that I'm exempt from wearing a mask. And now in Perth, WA, we have, we have mask regulations, and basically the message in the video was just talking about, I put it out to the person who was organising this event, and I said, listen, my specialist has made me exempt from wearing masks. Just want to let you know, I don't want to come there and make anyone uncomfortable. I've pretty much just been staying in my apartment because, the social situation, but let me know. And, she said, no, come along. I'll make sure, I'll speak to everyone and make sure that they're okay and comfortable. And so if I hadn't put that out there, if I hadn't shown up, if I hadn't shown up in my life, and long-winded conversation, but basically what I'm saying is that accountability of saying I'm going to decide my destiny showed up again, and I had to go, well, if I'm going to say that I'm going to be deciding my destiny, I need to show it, and I can't be holding myself back without mentioning things that a lot of people might disagree with or have problems with. Regardless, I'm deciding my destiny.
Exactly. Yeah, you've got to be the example of that, and it's not something you turn on and off.
No.
It's something we'll do to differing levels of success. Like I said, but we're not perfect. We can't be superhuman and be perfect all the time. But if we're always doing what we're doing from that heart space, from that intended place, sure, there's going to be times where we don't resonate with people. We're gonna butt up against some people, but we can't please everybody all of the time. And if we try and do that, if anyone tries to do that, then they're just going to self-destruct essentially. I think, I'm a firm believer that we do things from our place of intention, but at the same time, we need to be respectful to different opinions. And that's, again, what we were talking about before, understanding that others are different. So we see this, someone else is going to see that, and they're going to read something completely different into what we say or do. And that's okay. That's not wrong. That's their correct perspective. We've just got to be open to that. And then as we learn that, the more experiences of that we have, the more we have this internal check-in as, oh, okay, well, that's how that might come across to that person, or that's how that might come across to that person. So this is how I'm going to mitigate that. Exactly the example you've just said just then. You know, you didn't just rock up with no mask. You preempted that there might be people that might see that wrong, or see that differently, I should say. And you put a mitigating sort of step in there. And that's what we learn to do through experience.
Exactly. And you have those things that kind of halt you and say, oh, what if they don't? But you just go, no, let me put it out there. Let me put it out into the world. Let me put it out. And it's also the intention and how you put it out and your integrity. And I think this is important for a lot of youngsters, especially because I didn't grow up with a world that was online and documented, and someone could pull up in the catalogs a video 3 years earlier where I said something that maybe ruffled a few feathers. We have that sort of world where everything's documented, and I didn't grow up in that space. So there's a lot of pressures for young people, because they might do a video with their friends and have a bit of fun, and then that might get pulled up 5 years later when they go, for a job or for some other leadership role. That is opening up a whole other hour-long conversation just on that really quickly. I'm listening to a book at the moment by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. It's called Personality Isn't Permanent, and he uses an example. So he's very anti personality profiling, and I'm listening to this book because personality profiling is a big part of what I do. His problem with it is the fact that he views a lot of people that offer personality profiling as putting people in a box, and it's therefore limiting what they can do with themselves. Because I'm an introvert, for example, therefore I'll never be a public speaker speaking on stage. I just have to learn to be an introvert. How I use a personality profile is I say, okay, these are our natural preferences right now. You're not an introvert. You lean towards more introverted preferences. You have 100% extroversion at your disposal. You're just, you just need to, I use an example where I get people to write their name. And then I get them to put their pen in their opposite hand and write their name again. I'm like, you've got a left and a right hand. You just choose you have a natural preference to use one hand over the other. You can put the pen in the other hand and use it. So you can learn the skills to be a public speaker, even if you naturally sit at the quite introverted end of the scale. Long-winded way round of getting to my point. Important. We develop and we evolve, and over time, that introverted 15-year-old might naturally come a bit closer to the middle of the spectrum. So they still have to use that extra bit of effort, and they really still have to push themselves to get up on stage and speak, but it might not be such a huge step as it was when they were 15. And so we can choose who we want to be, and we can constantly evolve. We will constantly evolve, whether we have a conscious input to it or not. We will just naturally evolve, but we can choose who we want to be. And this kind of comes back to a little bit of like what we were talking about off air just before, in as much as we can choose to view the world through judgment, or we can choose to view the world through compassion. So I'm the same as you. I've been recording videos on social media and things for years. And some of the things I said 5 years ago, I might not agree with now. That doesn't mean if someone looked at it now, that they can't judge me now, 2021, Claire, on something I said 5 years ago. It's about the person viewing, taking responsibility, looking at things through compassion and curiosity, and
noticing that person could have changed, I guess, and that's okay. It doesn't make us unprofessional for changing our mind. It makes us, I'm a human, and we've grown. Exactly. So I don't know if there's a point to what I was saying there.
Well, I mean, no. What you touched on was, like it's showing that, I mean, for the audience and for younger generations, that, this is something that everyone has to deal with. We're all going to be recorded. We're all going to have that history. I mean, one of the videos that I did recently, in one of the daily doses, was, decide to laugh at yourself. And, I think it's such an important thing. And this is maybe it's an antidote to a world gone mad, where people might pull up, your archives and say, Kyle, you said this 5 years ago. What I do is I laugh. I'll kind of giggle at something, maybe like I made a funny video, or maybe I was coming across and my idea or my understanding of coming across and creating videos was very corporate or very, polished. And then I look at a video, a few years later, and I'm like very natural. And I look back at that old video and I go, and I laugh, because I'll giggle and I'll look at myself and I'll laugh at myself. And I think that's what I would say to so many youngsters, is that, if you can develop that ability to laugh at yourself, it's such a strength in 2021, especially. It's such a strength. But you can laugh at yourself if someone can, because unfortunately, you've got people who aren't very happy with themselves, who will bring up certain things and will try and tear you down, and so you have to develop those strong things that will kind of keep you up. And if you can laugh at it, I mean, imagine if someone showed a politician a video of them when they were a bit younger, and they were like, like they were on this side, but now they're over on that side. And he just giggled and goes, well, I found my side, but back then I wasn't sure. It would just deflate so much angst and weight of, you've got to be this perfect thing that we need you to be. Like you said, some of the greatest leaders that we really like, or that most people generally like, are leaders that, I think a lot of people talk about JFK, and I think the popular thing, no matter what he did or did not do in his office, popular vote is that people really liked him when he was in office. And I think it was because he had that human, he was one leader that had a human element to him, had a bit of a human nature, and kind of did make some mistakes and did talk about the mistakes that he made and mention those things. And he wasn't perfect. A lot of people don't know that he had extreme chronic pain and ailments when he came into power. So, that sort of imperfect thing and vulnerable thing that people see, like that's what connects us. That's that compassion, like you said, and makes us more human. And we need to become more human, for other humans to kind of be able to feel comfortable. So if anybody's got a video, laugh at it, and I'll just laugh.
And that is another neat little circle. It comes back to being the example. We need to be able to look back at ourselves, our past selves, with compassion, rather than judgment as well. And if we can't look back at our own growth through those eyes, then we're not gonna project that forward either. So I think there's, you can look back on your past and go, oh, what would you change? What's your biggest regret? What would you change about your past? And my response to that is, well, I wouldn't change anything in my past, because my past playing out exactly how it played out is what's got me to exactly where I am now. And if I want to make change, I look forward and I'm like, okay, well, this is the next thing that I want to achieve. Who do I need to be to achieve that? How do I need to grow and evolve myself to get there? And it's always looking forward. If we keep looking back and go, I really regret doing that, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that, we're really restricting ourselves. It's like, we can reflect. I'm not talking about completely ignoring the past. We can reflect and we can learn from it, but there's a fine line between reflecting and pondering too long on it. And living in the past, ruminating. That's what I'm after. And so it's for me, it's like, let's always look forward. Yes, that happened. Maybe that wasn't my proudest moment. Maybe I could have handled it better. Let's draw a line now. I can't change that. It's happened. Who do I need to be? What do I need to learn? How do I need to grow? How do I need to change to stop that happening next time?
Yes.
That's more my focus.
I love it. I think we're very in tune with it, with the focus. I mean, to leverage off that answer, my final answer would be, for the audience, for younger generations, and for people that are maybe changing careers now in 2021, or wanting to go into a different path, or like you said, want to decide where they want to live or how they want to live, and then want to um, connect the dots looking backwards. What would, and it's another big question, but what would deciding your destiny, mean to you? Like, what does deciding your destiny mean to you, Claire?
I think to kind of pull back a little bit, but I am answering the question. Something that really changed how I looked at things was one of my mentors said in a masterclass thing that I was on, that nothing has meaning except the meaning we put to it. And it kind of blew my mind a little bit at the time, because I'm like, what? No, when that happens, it means that. And I really had to stop and think and go, no, it only means that to me in that moment because I put the meaning to it. It could mean something else, and it will mean something else to someone else. And it totally blew my mind, and it totally changed how I looked at things. And I guess what does deciding your destiny mean? It's about, to me, it's about being comfortable that we have 100% control and responsibility of everything and nothing at the same time. We can't control. There's a tiny element of life that we can control. But fundamentally, we really don't have much control over anything. Like, stuff is going to happen. Bushfires are going to rage. Pandemics are going to happen. We're going to have arguments. We're going to have falling outs. People are going to get sick. We're going to lose our jobs. We're going to, stuff happens. We can't control that, but we can control how we react to it, and we can control the meaning that we put to it. And so that's kind of how I would wrap up what deciding your destiny means to me. It's about appreciating that there is so much that's going to go on in the world that we can't control. And we need to stop trying to control that and just have faith that if we just control how we view it and the meaning that we put to it, then, like I said before, our experience of it is going to be so completely different. So that's kind of what it means to me. It's taking responsibility for what we make things mean.
That's a healing answer, because I mean, it's once you kind of try and pull back the reins and the stranglehold on everything in the world that you can't control. I hate this one. I like this one. I believe in this. I believe in that. How dare you say? Once you pull back the kind of constraints that you're trying to control the whole world, and you realize, the one thing that I can control is myself. And I mean, there's an amazing book, an amazing story. I can't remember the names escape me right now, but of a gentleman who was in a concentration camp, and he said he was able to control his mind and his thoughts, and make himself, like, I think he was like saying, make himself bliss or like happy, or he realized that was the last thing that a human being has, like, that can be taken away from them, is their attitude about a given situation, their mindset about a given situation. So I think, I mean, that's obviously quite on one end, or quite extenuated example, but that's so true. We all have the ability, and it's like, why are you making yourself sick? Why are you making yourself depressed? And look, there's many reasons and many factors, and I know I've gone through some of those situations myself. There's many things that influence it, but if you can take control back to realize, I control this little space, God, how much simpler is that? How much easier is life?
And look, that's going to come up. We're going to come up against that. Is going to come up against our own problems, because there will be a huge number of people around us in the world that we interact with that won't have that level of thinking yet. And we can't force that level of thinking on someone that's not ready for it. And I don't want that to come across as really like pig-headed or, floating myself on a pedestal. It's just the fact of the matter. Some people are quite comfortable sitting in their heads, sitting in that space
It's where they
or
belong.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And
What they belong to. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine as well. There may come a point where they realize that, you know, life could be so much simpler or, you know, less stressful, and it's just a decision that they have to make, or they might not. So I think, you know, it's just putting a last disclaimer out there that, you know, we can live our lives like that, with that thinking, with that attitude, but we're still going to butt up against people.
Yeah.
And we just have to have courage in our own convictions, I guess.
Yeah.
And empathy and compassion, and rock forth as best we can.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, there's no better way to finish that. That was awesome. Thank you, Claire. I really appreciate that. Beautiful.
Pleasure.
And I've really enjoyed chatting with you. Now, where could my audience find out a little bit more about you? You know, if some people are listening to this and they want to kind of see how you can pull it apart and put it back together for them, or if people just want to kind of follow you, where could they find you?
So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I am more active on LinkedIn. Just search Claire Markwick. Also my website, reignitepc.com.au. They can find me there too. Okay. And there is a podcast from me waiting in the wings as well. So I can keep everyone posted with that too.
Beautiful. I'd love to hear more from you. Love it.
Excellent.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Claire. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Decide Your Destiny crew, for tuning in. And I hope you took a lot of things away from that. And please give Claire a follow. Check her out on LinkedIn and Reignite. And yeah, like always, subscribe, like, share. If you have some thoughts or some takeaways from this podcast and this interview, please let me know in the comments down below. And as always, guys, remember, decide your destiny. Cheers.